There are certain hours of the night that should never ring. When my cell phone pierced the quiet at 2:47 in the morning, I already knew the universe wasn't calling with good news. I fumbled blindly across my bedside table until the screen lit up my face with icy brightness. It was my grandson, Ethan. He was the last person on earth who still called me grandma with love in his voice instead of obligation. My voice was raw from sleep. "Ethan, what is it?" His answer clattered straight through my bones. "Grandma, I'm at the police station. Chelsea hit me, but she's telling them I pushed her. Dad believes her. He thinks I attacked her." I sat up so fast dizziness followed after. Ethan's words were tumbling with panic. "She used a metal candle holder. My eyebrow won't stop bleeding. They said if a guardian doesn't come, they'll transfer me to—" "Stop right there," I cut him off. "Tell me what precinct." "Greenwich Village," his voice cracked. "Grandma, I'm scared." I didn't even bother turning the lights on. I pulled on the closest clothes my hands found. When I caught my reflection in the mirror, gray hair wild, face lined with age, I didn't see a frightened old woman. I saw the investigator I used to be. Commander Elena Stone. 35 years in criminal investigations, interrogations, lies, brutality, truth. I grabbed my expired badge. Instinct, nothing else. Outside, the street felt emptied of humanity. Just cold pavement and street lamps. I hailed a cab, and as we swept through the city, every second pulsed with Ethan's quivering voice replaying in my mind. My father doesn't believe me. My heart sank deeper than fear could reach. Rob, my son, had slowly drifted away since he remarried. Chelsea arrived shortly after Ethan's mother passed, slipping into his grief like a shadow, pretending to be light. Beautiful, poised, calculated. I noticed her smile never reached her eyes. But grief blinds the ones who need comfort the most. Now she had what she wanted. My son's loyalty, his distance, and apparently my grandson's misery. The police lights burned through the dark as the taxi screeched to a stop. But when I mentioned my name, something strange happened. An officer went pale, like he'd heard of me before. And that's when everything inside me shifted. The grandmother everyone overlooked had just awakened the investigator everyone used to fear. Because whoever attacked Ethan had chosen the wrong family and the wrong grandmother. What I was about to discover in that police station would drag every buried secret of Chelsea's past into the light and reveal a truth far darker than a single night of violence. Before we continue, make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss what's about to unfold next. The precinct lobby felt colder than the winter air outside. Fluorescent lighting buzzed against the silence, while a young desk officer sifted through paperwork. When I mentioned Ethan's name, his expression shifted, slowly, like something heavy just settled behind his eyes. "Domestic assault case?" he repeated. "Are you the grandmother?" "Elena Stone." He blinked, then looked again, longer. "Stone, as in Commander Stone?" I slid my expired badge onto the counter. His posture snapped straight. "Oh, Commander, I'm sorry. I didn't know. Please, right this way." Funny how respect returns the moment someone realizes you weren't always invisible. The officer guided me through a narrow hallway that still smelled like stale coffee and old ink. I had walked these halls for decades, yet tonight they felt foreign, like someone had replaced the familiar with something hollow. We entered a bleak waiting area, and there he was, Ethan, 16 years old, shoulders shaking, a crude bandage across his brow where red still seeped through. When his eyes found me, something inside him broke loose. He hurried up and wrapped his arms around me like the child he once was, like he had finally found somewhere safe to collapse. "I'm here," I whispered into his hair. "I'm here." Across the room, my son stood rigid, arms folded. I searched his face, desperate to find a trace of the boy I raised, compassionate, thoughtful. All I found was distance and shame hiding behind stubbornness. And next to him sat Chelsea, robe draped elegantly, hair styled like a magazine cover, as if she were starring in a tragic movie scene. A bruise, too conveniently placed, darkened her arm. She looked up briefly, eyes glistening with fake tremble, performing pity for an audience she assumed was gullible. Except she forgot I built my career reading liars. Before I could speak, the office door opened and Captain Charles Spencer stepped out. I recognized him instantly, the keen expression, the steady posture. Years ago, he was under my command, quick-witted and honest, even under pressure. "Commander Stone," he said, stopping in his tracks. "Good evening, Captain." We shook hands, too formal for circumstances soaked with emotion, but respect is sometimes the only familiar language left. "He had no idea you were involved," he said quietly. "Well," I answered, keeping my voice firm, "now you do." He led Ethan and me toward his office, while Rob and Chelsea remained behind. I didn't look back. I couldn't. Not yet. Inside the office, Spencer closed the door gently, sat behind the desk, and exhaled a heavy truth before speaking. "The situation isn't simple," he said. I leaned forward, cold resolve tightening in my chest. "Let's start with her story, then you'll hear mine." And what Spencer told me next confirmed one terrifying thing. Chelsea wasn't improvising. She was executing something planned. But what Ethan revealed inside that office wasn't just a cry for help. It was the beginning of a conspiracy that stretched far mucher than bruises or broken trust. Spencer opened a thin manila folder and glanced over several pages before speaking, as if he needed to remind himself which version belonged to whom. Chelsea claims Ethan came home late, argued with her, and shoved her down the stairwell. She says he struck her arm during the struggle. The injury matches some of what she's saying. I felt Ethan shrink beside me, as if guilt had wrapped him up, even though he'd done nothing wrong. "And Ethan's account?" I asked. Spencer's jaw tightened. He says she blindsided him with some kind of metal candle holder. He claims she acted out her own bruises afterward. "That's not a claim," I corrected, my voice steady. "That's what happened." Spencer rubbed his forehead, looking uncomfortable. "The cameras in the house were offline the entire night. According to your son, they've been malfunctioning for days." How convenient. Too convenient. I turned toward Ethan, placing my hand lightly on his arm. "Tell me exactly what happened." He hesitated, then lifted his eyes to mine, full of fear and humiliation that no child should ever carry. "I got home a little after 10. I texted Dad to tell him I was studying for my math exam. She was waiting for me in the living room with the lights off." His breathing faltered. "She grabbed Dad's phone and waved it at me, saying he didn't care where I was. She called me a burden, said nobody wants me around." I swallowed hard, feeling something sharp twist in my chest. "When I tried to go upstairs, she pulled my arm. I tried to get away. That's when she hit me, hard with the candle thing." He pointed at the wrapped cut above his eye. "And the bruises you saw on her?" Spencer asked gently. I watched her make them, Ethan whispered. She slammed herself against the wall, and by the time Dad came down, she was crying, saying, "I pushed her." Spencer leaned back slowly, the weight of Ethan's words hanging in the air. "My father didn't even look at me," he added. "He just called the police." I felt my throat burn. "Has this happened before?" I asked softly. Ethan looked down. His silence was the answer. Spencer cleared his throat. Given the conflicting statements and without actual physical evidence, my only legal option is to release Ethan into the custody of a responsible adult while we continue reviewing things. "I'll take him," I said before Spencer finished the sentence. He nodded and started preparing paperwork, but I couldn't stop staring at Ethan, my grandson living under a roof where he was treated like an unwanted trespasser. "A few months ago," Ethan finally murmured, barely audible, "she locked me in the basement because I mentioned I missed you." A cold silence swallowed the room. Spencer's eyes widened. That wasn't just cruelty, it was calculated isolation. And Chelsea wasn't just dangerous, she was escalating. But what Ethan admitted next would reveal Chelsea's true motive and prove that violence was only the beginning of her plan. Spencer stepped out briefly to get Rob's signature for release. The moment the door clicked shut, I turned toward Ethan, lowering my voice. "How long has she been hurting you?" His jaw tensed. I recognized the hesitation, not the type that hides guilt, but the kind shaped by fear of making things worse. "Don't tell me you don't know what I mean," I whispered. Ethan stared at the floor for several seconds. "About 6 months," he finally answered. "It started with comments, then breaking my things. She smashed my game console, tore up my notebooks. She called them accidents, but they weren't." My heart ached, but anger pulsed harder than sadness. "And the physical stuff?" I asked. "I thought it would stop," he said, his voice trembling. "But every time Dad didn't notice, she got bolder." He lifted his shirt, and I caught a glimpse of faint bruises along his ribs, older ones fading, newer ones still purple. "Why didn't you tell me?" I whispered. His answer knifed me. "Because I thought Dad would get angrier with you. She always said you hated her, that you wanted to ruin our family. I didn't want to make you more of a problem." I closed my eyes a moment, fighting the sting behind them. Ethan wasn't just trying to protect himself. He'd been trying to protect me. And tonight, why did she finally go that far? Ethan swallowed hard. "Because I heard her talking on the phone last week. She didn't know I was outside their bedroom door." He took a shaky breath. "She told someone that once the old lady finally dies, Dad would inherit your apartment, sell it for millions, and move away." I felt my pulse jolt. "She said they already had a plan," Ethan whispered. "That when you were gone and I was out of the way, they'd opened some hotel in Florida and lived a life they always wanted." I stared at him, stunned not by her greed, but by how casually she'd laid out my death as part of her future plans. "You're certain that's exactly what she said?" "I remember every word," Ethan said. "That's why when she attacked me, I knew she was doing more than getting angry. She wants to push me out, so there's nothing stopping Dad from doing whatever she wants." I felt something shift inside me, something fierce and unyielding. Spencer returned with paperwork, but all I could hear was Ethan's quiet fear. Chelsea wasn't just a cruel stepmother. She was positioning herself to erase us. But Chelsea underestimated the wrong family because my investigation skills hadn't disappeared. They were about to wake up. Before we go on, make sure you're subscribed. This story is only getting darker from here. I took Ethan home with me, though home was hardly large, just my modest third-floor apartment above a small bakery. He moved through the entrance as though he were finally exhaling. I made hot chocolate the way my mother once made it for me. Warm milk, real cocoa, slow stirring. Ethan cupped the mug with both hands, letting the heat settle into him like a blanket someone finally wrapped around his shoulders. "Grandma," he asked quietly as steam curled between us, "can I stay here? Not just temporarily, for real." I wanted to say yes immediately, but reality is a cage all its own. "Legally, your father still has custody," I explained. "To stay here permanently, we'll need lawyers, hearings, time." His shoulders sagged. "Dad won't agree." "We don't know that yet," I said, though deep down I feared he was right. The boy I raised had been buried beneath Chelsea's influence for years. Then Ethan's voice dropped even lower. "I never told Dad what I heard about her plans. I tried once, but he accused me of being jealous, said I couldn't handle seeing him happy again." I nearly dropped my cup. "Ethan, she's manipulating his grief. She's isolating you the same way she isolated him from me." Something in Ethan's eyes hardened. Not anger, but clarity. "If she wants me gone, that means she's scared of me knowing the truth." And he was right. Later that night, when Ethan finally fell asleep in my bedroom, I sat alone on the living room couch and scrolled through photos he had secretly taken. Bruises scattered across his arms, shoulder, back. Each picture was dated, documented, undeniable. My phone filled with silent evidence. I opened an old notebook I hadn't touched since retirement, the one I used during investigations. Code names, contacts, phone numbers, my old life in ink. My finger found a name I knew I could trust. Linda Davis, my former partner, now a part of an investigator. I called her. It rang 4 times before her groggy voice answered. "Elena, at this hour?" "I need your help. It involves my grandson and a woman who isn't who she says she is." Half an hour later, I had told her everything, from Ethan's phone call to Chelsea's unsettling plans. When I finished, Linda whistled softly. "Elena, what you're describing isn't just domestic abuse. That sounds like a professional manipulator, maybe even a con artist." "I've thought the same." "I'll dig," Linda said. "Names, background, financials, everything. Give me 2 days." And in that moment, something inside me clicked back into place. The woman who chased criminals across cities, who solved cases everyone else called impossible. Chelsea picked the wrong family to dismantle, and she'd soon discover she picked the wrong grandmother to underestimate. 2 days later, Linda returned with information that didn't just expose Chelsea's lies, it uncovered a pattern of vanished spouses and mysterious inheritances. 2 days later, a sharp knock echoed at my apartment door. I opened it to see Linda standing there holding a thick folder, her expression dark in a way I recognized from old case nights when the truth arrived uglier than expected. "We need coffee," she said. That tone alone told me this wasn't simple marital mischief. This was something far bigger. Ethan was in the shower, so we sat at the dining table. Linda spread out documents the way surgeons set tools before an operation. First, she began, tapping the top page. Her name wasn't originally Chelsea Brooks. My chest tightened. She was born Vanessa Ruiz, Houston, Texas, 34, not 32. She changed her name legally, but under circumstances that don't make sense. Linda flipped to a wedding photograph. Young Vanessa standing beside a silver-haired man twice her age. Her first marriage, Linda explained. Wealthy business owner, widowed, 2 grown children. He died suddenly 2 years later, heart complications, perfectly timed.
She inherited property worth nearly $3 million. I felt the hairs on my arms rise. Linda slid another picture forward. A different wedding, same woman, different older groom. Second husband, Linda continued, also widowed, also wealthy. He fell down the stairs and died shortly after. No witnesses. The security cameras were strangely offline. My pulse thudded. Third husband, Linda said, placing yet another document. Older, retired engineer. He didn't die. His son disappeared instead. And guess who now controls the father's estate? I stared at her in disbelief. Are you telling me she's repeating this pattern with Rob? Linda nodded grimly. Your son fits her profile. Recent widower, emotionally vulnerable, with assets she wants access to. And Ethan, he's an obstacle, like the missing son. My stomach clenched. So what happened to that young man? I asked. No one knows, Linda said. He left a vague text about traveling, never returned. Police eventually stopped looking, but, she lowered her voice, his sister told me she's terrified of your daughter-in-law and refuses to talk about it. I leaned back slowly, absorbing every chilling piece. Linda wasn't done. There's another name that keeps appearing beside hers in legal paperwork. Gerald Hayes, lawyer. He helped process all 3 estates and transactions that made her wealthy. So she doesn't work alone, I murmured. They split profits, Linda said. Bank transfers indicate shared accounts offshore. All my instincts roared awake. Every cell in my body knew this wasn't coincidence. Ethan re-entered the room quietly, seeing our grim faces. Is this about her? He asked. I nodded. More than you ever imagined. His expression paled, then firmed. So she's done this before. And she's planning to do it again, I answered softly. But this time, Ethan said, jaw tightening, she messed with the wrong people. I placed my hand over his. No, Ethan. This time, she messed with a woman who knows exactly how predators operate. And soon, Chelsea would do something reckless, something that would give me the piece of evidence she never expected anyone to find.
Only a week had passed since Ethan moved in with me, yet the quiet safety of my apartment already felt fragile, like a match in a storm. I tried to keep things ordinary. Morning pancakes, homework help, leaving the TV humming in the background. But beneath those small attempts lived a constant alertness. Every time footsteps echoed in the hallway, Ethan stiffened. And every time my phone vibrated, my heart ticked up like a warning. Wednesday afternoon, while Ethan was doing homework at the table, the building buzzer shrilled sharply. 3 long presses. Not a neighbor, not the bakery owner downstairs. Instinct signaled danger. I looked through the tiny hallway camera and felt my pulse slam into my ribs. Chelsea, standing right inside the entrance to the building. Hair perfect, makeup precise, coat elegant. A serpent disguised as sophistication. I pressed the intercom. What do you want? Her voice floated upward with sugary politeness. Elena, I simply came to see my stepson. You kidnapped him and refused to answer our calls. I nearly laughed at that choice of words. Kidnapped. The performance continued. Accessing the building required a key. She must have followed another tenant inside. That alone told me she didn't care about boundaries, which meant we were beyond psychological games now. I'm calling the police, I told her. She chuckled softly. Oh, please, they know whose custody he belongs to. Open the door unless you want them to escort him back to his father. Ethan looked up, panic flickering in his eyes. He whispered, Don't let her in, please. I muted the microphone. I won't, I assured him. You're safe here. I unmuted again. You have no right to come here without notice. Leave. Chelsea leaned closer to the camera, smiled tight and calculated. If you think keeping that boy here is legal, you're more senile than I thought. Rob will be filing paperwork for emergency custody tomorrow. That paperwork will fail, I answered. Her eyes gleamed with assurance. She thought power belonged to the one who shouted first, but real power sits quietly until the truth speaks for itself. She pressed the buzzer again, longer this time. If you don't open that door, I'll say he's being held against his will. Social services love situations like that. My muscles clenched. She knew exactly where to hit, threats with a varnish of legitimacy. Then as cold fury spread across my chest, I leaned toward the screen and whispered, "Get off my property." And with that, I killed the intercom connection. There was silence for a moment. Then a faint sound, a metallic scrape near the downstairs door. Ethan flinched. What's she doing? I opened the small hallway camera feed again. Chelsea held something slim and silver, sliding it along the lock. She was picking the door, breaking and entering, crossing a line that changed everything. Chelsea eased the lock with practiced precision, like someone who'd done this many times before. I reached toward my phone to dial 911, but before I could press a number, a voice boomed from downstairs. "Ma'am, you need to step away from that door." A security guard stood at the bottom of the stairwell, heavy belt, flashlight holstered. The bakery owner had apparently noticed Chelsea lingering and called building security. I silently thanked whatever force of timing intervened. Chelsea straightened as though offended by the interruption. "Excuse me, I'm visiting my stepson. I have every right." "Tampering with a lock isn't visiting," the guard said flatly. "Leave the premises or I'll call police." I watched through the camera as Chelsea shifted from sweet to venomous in a heartbeat. Her smile thinned. "Do you know who I am?" "No, and I don't care. Out." She hesitated, calculating, searching for a way to twist command back into her favor. But this wasn't her suburban kingdom where sympathy came easily. This was a city building with rules that didn't bend for charm. The guard stepped closer. "You have 10 seconds. Chelsea threw one more glare up toward the camera, right at me, a silent promise of revenge. Then she turned sharply and left, heels clicking furiously against concrete. Ethan exhaled shakily. That could have gone bad. Yes, and it will again. He swallowed. What happens next? I stared at the blank monitor a long moment, weighing the next move. Now, I said, we stop playing defense. That evening, Linda returned with fresh findings, financial records connecting Chelsea to a private bank in the Cayman Islands. She also found sudden transfers of large sums shortly after each husband's death. No job, no career history, but plenty of travel. Dubai, Monaco, Switzerland, always luxury resorts, always accompanied by similar financial withdrawals. What about this lawyer, Gerald Hayes? I checked. Disbarred last year, money laundering, suspicious asset transfers. He vanished shortly afterward, no forwarding address. So that's her partner, I murmured. Or her handler, Linda countered. Someone has been teaching her exactly how far to go without leaving proof. The weight of that possibility settled like stone in my stomach. Later that night, when Ethan went to bed, I sat alone at my desk, reviewing everything, documents, bank data, the eerie pattern of dead spouses. The more I pieced together, the clearer the shape of it became. She wasn't improvising. She was following a design, a blueprint she'd perfected. But she'd made her biggest mistake by threatening Ethan and by underestimating the investigator I still was. My phone buzzed suddenly. A text from an unknown number. This is your last warning. Return Ethan and we'll forget your interference. No name, no signature. Just a threat. But something else chilled me far more. Attached was a photo. My apartment building, taken from across the street. Whoever sent that photo wasn't just watching us. They were close and closing in. The photo unsettled me. Not because someone photographed the building, but because of the angle. It wasn't snapped casually from the sidewalk. It was taken from inside a car parked directly across the street. Someone had been sitting there, waiting, watching. I closed the curtains at once. Ethan, noticing my sudden movement, drifted toward me. Something wrong? No, I lied automatically, but he saw through me. I showed him the message. His face drained. That has to be her, he whispered. Or someone acting for her, I said. Either way, it means we're forcing her hand. She's feeling cornered. What do we do now? I thought about my past, years spent tracking suspects, studying patterns, understanding how fear manipulates decisions. A predator pushed too hard often lashes out. But when a predator worries they're losing control, they panic, and that panic exposes everything. We become unpredictable, I answered. That night, I called Spencer again. He met me early the next morning at a diner, neutral ground, noisy enough that no one could eavesdrop easily. We sat in a booth near the window, Ethan at my side, Linda across from me. Spencer folded his hands. I reviewed the case again. Without visual evidence or witness testimony confirming abuse, it's her word against Ethan's. And with Rob backing Chelsea, he's being manipulated. I interrupted. I don't disagree, Spencer said, but the law deals with facts, not assumptions. Right now, she legally remains the custodial step-parent. Ethan stared down at his untouched plate. Every rule seemed built to protect her. What about her past marriages? I pressed. Spencer sighed. I tried pulling what I could, but since there were no charges, no open investigations, her history looks clean. She's either extremely lucky or very calculated. She's dangerous, Linda added bluntly, and she's not done. Spencer lowered his voice. Elena, I know your history. I know how many cases you solved, but this is different. You're personally involved. Yes, I said, calm but firm, which means I have more reason to finish this. He met my gaze, clearly torn between protocol and trust. Be careful. If Chelsea feels threatened, she might fabricate something that positions you as unstable. I've handled worse. But Spencer wasn't finished. One more thing. Your son called me this morning. He says you brainwashed Ethan. He wants police to perform a wellness check. Ethan flinched. Did he mention the photo? I asked. No, Spencer replied, but I recommend documenting everything. Messages, pictures, recordings. If she escalates, and she will, we need proof. As we left the diner, I scanned the parking lot instinctively. That's when I noticed a dark sedan idling at the far end, windows tinted, engine running. Too still, too observant. Ethan followed my eyes. Grandma, is that? Don't look directly, I whispered. Just keep walking. But I could feel it. Someone inside that car was watching every step we took. And when that car started following us, I realized Chelsea wasn't just observing, she was hunting. We walked side by side through the parking lot, pretending not to notice the dark sedan. Every instinct I ever earned during my years in law enforcement lit up like alarms in my bloodstream. I moved slowly, casually, guiding Ethan toward the opposite exit. The sedan rolled forward a few feet, stopped, followed again. Once we were outside the lot, I led Ethan around the block instead of heading straight for the bus stop. Keep your voice low, I murmured. Should we call Spencer? Ethan asked quietly. Not yet. Let's confirm what we're dealing with. Halfway down the block, a delivery truck turned in front of us. As soon as it blocked the line of sight, I steered Ethan behind it and crossed the street quickly. The sedan slowed on the other side, scanning. Whoever was inside wasn't just checking where we went. They were tailing us deliberately, waiting for a moment of isolation. I know how this works, Ethan whispered, his hand gripping my sleeve.
No, I said softly, you shouldn't have to know any of this. We ducked briefly into a bookstore. I bought a newspaper we didn't need, just to make our exit less obvious. When we emerged, the sedan was parked several storefronts down, engine still purring. They weren't even trying to hide anymore. We boarded a city bus, and I positioned us halfway down the aisle. As we pulled away, the sedan merged onto the same street, pacing us from a distance. "Grandma, what if she tries to grab me?" Ethan's voice trembled. "She won't get close," I assured him. "She likes doing things in shadows. If she steps into daylight, everything becomes evidence." Still, Ethan sat rigid, eyes fixed on the window as the car followed beside the bus, lane by lane, like a predator keeping speed with prey. We got off several stops later, near a crowded market. I watched carefully as the sedan slowed, circled once, then vanished down a side street. "She lost us," Ethan said, relief flooding his tone. "For now," I corrected. At home, I contacted a trusted colleague at the tech division I once supervised, now retired but still full of favors. We encrypted Ethan's phone, set motion sensors by the windows, and laid a plan for documenting anything suspicious. That night, as Ethan slept, I stared out the window, thinking about the dark sedan, the offshore accounts, the pattern of dead husbands, and the missing son. Chelsea wasn't merely manipulative or abusive. She was part of something organized, a syndicate disguised as marriage. And if that sedan was connected to her, then someone else was now involved. Someone we hadn't identified yet. Just past midnight, a notification lit my phone. A motion alert from the building entrance camera. A figure in a heavy hood walked up to the door. Not Chelsea. Someone taller. Someone unfamiliar. Someone who looked directly into the camera, as if they wanted me to know they were there. And when that person slipped an envelope under my apartment door, I realized this wasn't a threat anymore. It was a countdown.
I waited several seconds, listening for footsteps, breaths, any hint of movement outside. Nothing. Just the soft hum of city traffic through closed windows. When I finally opened the door, the hallway was empty, but a cream-colored envelope rested on the floor, edges crisp, unstained, deliberate. No handwriting on the front, no stamp. Only one word typed neatly. For you. My pulse throbbed. They weren't threatening Ethan this time. They were addressing me directly. I brought the envelope inside and shut the door firmly. I didn't open it immediately. Instead, I scanned the outer surface, checking for powder traces, chemical odor, weight imbalance. Old investigative instincts don't fade. Caution becomes part of muscle memory. Satisfied it was just paper, I slit it open with a kitchen knife. Inside were printed photographs, high resolution, carefully angled, each one showing Ethan boarding the bus with me earlier that day, walking streets, entering stores. Someone had followed us closely, in daylight. The final picture unsettled me most. Ethan reaching for my hand as we crossed the street. A message without words. We see you. We know your routine. We know your bond. At the bottom of the envelope lay a small USB drive. Plain black, no branding. My fingers tightened around it. Digital unknowns were often worse than physical threats. Linda arrived moments later after I called. She studied the photograph silently, her jaw grinding the way it always did when anger simmered beneath calculation. "This isn't Chelsea's style," Linda said finally. "She's dramatic, but she likes plausible deniability. This is intimidation through surveillance. Whoever took these wants you anxious, not her." "Which means she has help," I replied. Linda nodded. "Likely the lawyer, or someone connected to him.
I connected the USB to an isolated laptop, not my personal computer, and opened the single file inside. A video emerged. Grainy security footage recorded from an unknown angle. A woman walking through a large living room, Chelsea, her back turned. A man's voice instructing her to stick to the plan, his tone cold, detached. Chelsea responded calmly, "He'll sign everything. He just needs the right push." Linda leaned closer. "Listen, that voice. He's directing the whole operation, not her." Then came the part that turned my stomach. Chelsea added quietly, "If the boy interferes, we escalate." A click ended the video abruptly. No date stamp, no location, just enough to terrify, but also enough to prove collaboration. Someone inside her circle sent this. Someone wants her exposed. Or wants to manipulate us, divide us, make us paranoid. Either way, they know too much. Ethan appeared in the doorway, rubbing his eyes. "What's happening?" I tucked the photographs beneath the laptop. "Nothing you need to worry about right now." But the truth glared from the table. We were being monitored, photographed, and carefully pushed toward fear. And fear creates mistakes. Chelsea was building a trap, but someone else was building one bigger. And when Spencer finally called back with information he shouldn't legally have accessed, everything shifted into a far deadlier direction.
My phone buzzed shortly after dawn, a restricted number. I answered quietly, stepping into the hallway so Ethan wouldn't overhear. "Elena," Spencer said, voice hushed and strained. I looked into something off the record, and I shouldn't be saying this, but you need to listen carefully. "Go on," I urged. I checked financial transfers connected to Chelsea's name. There were large withdrawals months ago, days before her previous husband died. But what's unusual is where the funds ended up. Offshore entities, yes, but linked through a specific holding company registered in the Caribbean. I already sensed the direction. Gerald Hayes? That's the name attached, Spencer confirmed. But here's the part that bothers me. The holding company is tied to several missing person reports across 3 states, all unresolved, all dismissed due to lack of physical evidence. A chill ran along my spine. So she isn't just after inheritance. No, Spencer agreed. Someone has been enabling her, then disappearing anything that stands in the way. And if you're right about Ethan being targeted— "I am right," I said firmly. "Elena," he continued quietly, "I believe your grandson was next. Once your apartment was passed to your son, she would convince him to sell everything. You know how it would look on paper. Grieving father, starting a new life after tragedy." My stomach twisted. "How soon?" He hesitated. "Soon enough that I need you to take this seriously. I'm filing a welfare alert for Ethan without mentioning your involvement. It's the only legal protection I can provide without raising suspicion." "I appreciate it," I said, my voice lower than intended. "But listen," Spencer continued quietly, "this isn't all. There are records showing communication between Chelsea and an unidentified number registered internationally. The caller ID was masked each time. The log stopped 2 months ago, exactly when she married your son. So whoever she reports to already got what they needed, access to Rob's finances. And you," Spencer added, "your assets are substantial. They know it. Death inherited after retirement seems tragically plausible on paper." There it was, the blueprint of my disappearance drafted like a business plan. "What do you expect me to do?" I asked.
Document everything. Keep Ethan out of sight. And Elena, don't confront her yet. If she senses you're investigating, she'll accelerate whatever she's planning." "I'm not waiting quietly," I answered. "I know," Spencer sighed. "That's why I'm calling you instead of pretending this is just a custody issue." We ended the call. I stood a long moment staring at the door to Ethan's room, his backpack, his sneakers, pieces of a childhood someone was quietly plotting to erase. Linda appeared beside me moments later. "He knows more than he should," she said quietly. "Yes," I replied, "and Chelsea knows we're circling too close." "That makes her unpredictable," Linda warned. "Maybe, but unpredictability works both ways." Just then, another notification pinged from the hallway camera. A familiar figure had entered the building. Rob. And the expression on his face told me he wasn't here to talk. He was here to take Ethan by force.
Rob stood in the hallway outside my apartment, shoulders squared, eyes hard with a determination that didn't belong to the son I remembered. I opened the door halfway, blocking his view inside. "What are you doing here?" I asked. He brushed past the question. "Where's Ethan? I'm taking him home." I stepped forward, narrowing the gap, not without a court order. Rob scoffed. "He's been sending Chelsea threatening messages. You're manipulating him into hating her." "That's not true," I replied steadily. "He's been documenting abuse." Rob's expression twisted, almost pained. "Chelsea is emotionally exhausted, Elena. She's scared of him. Every time she tries to help, he turns violent." The lies landed like blows. I felt anger surge beneath my calm exterior. "Rob, listen to yourself. Does that sound like the boy you raised?" "This is what grief does," he whispered, almost rehearsed. "You wouldn't understand. You always judge every woman I care about." "I judged lies, not women," I snapped. Rob flinched, then attempted to soften his tone. "Please, just let Ethan come home. We can sort this out as a family." "By letting Chelsea finish what she started?" I asked coldly. He stiffened. "Enough. If you don't bring him out right now, I'll call the police and tell them you're withholding a minor." "You mean your son?" I corrected quietly. "The one you're supposed to protect?" Rob's jaw clenched. His eyes flickered with something deeper. Fear, uncertainty, something struggling beneath Chelsea's control. But then he hardened again. "Ethan is scared of you. Chelsea told me." I cut him off. "Chelsea says whatever achieves her agenda." Rob's face flushed. "You don't get to talk about my wife like that." I held his stare. "Your wife has a past you don't know about." Rob laughed bitterly. "You've always hated her." Linda stepped forward from the living room, voice calm. "Rob, what if your mother isn't wrong? Just listen. Just once." Rob's head snapped toward her. "Who the hell are you?" "Someone with enough evidence to destroy the fantasy she's been selling you," Linda answered. I watched something flicker in Rob's eyes, doubt. But doubt wasn't enough yet. Chelsea's manipulation wrapped around him like chains disguised as comfort. Ethan remained hidden in the bedroom. He didn't need to hear this, but I knew he was listening, every word, every tremor in his father's voice. Finally, Rob exhaled shakily. If all of this was real, why didn't Ethan tell me himself?" "Because every time he tried, you defended her," I answered softly. Rob's face froze, like the truth struck somewhere he couldn't ignore. Then his phone buzzed. He looked down, a message. And when his eyes lifted again, they were darker, colder. Chelsea's shadow replacing whatever remained of the man I once raised. He stepped forward, voice low and lethal. "I'm not leaving without him."
And then his hand reached behind his back, not for a phone, for something metallic. And the moment Rob pulled that object into view, I realized Chelsea was ready to sacrifice anyone, including Rob himself, to keep her plan alive.
Rob's fingers curled around the metal object, and my body tensed, ready for the worst. But when he lifted it fully into view, relief washed through me. A house key. Not a weapon, though the intention behind it was as threatening as anything else. "I still have access to my son," he declared. "That key doesn't belong here," I replied quietly. "And neither do you, unless you're willing to listen." Rob's shoulders seemed to collapse briefly, all confidence draining away. "Chelsea says you're trying to turn him against me." "And Ethan says she's abused him," I countered. He opened his mouth to object, but that was when Ethan appeared in the hallway doorway, pale but resolute. "Dad, she hurt me. She's been hurting me for months." Rob froze, the key hanging uselessly between his fingers. "Ethan, she loves you." "No," Ethan whispered. "She loves what she gets because she married you." Rob looked back and forth between us, unraveling in real time. Years of manipulation began tearing loose inside him. "Why didn't you? It doesn't make sense." "Because every time I tried to tell you, you believed her instead of me." Rob's breath caught, guilt colliding with denial. Linda stepped in carefully. "Rob, there are documents, transfers, previous marriages that ended under suspicious circumstances." "Stop," Rob muttered, pressing his hands to his head. "I can't listen to this." But then Ethan reached forward and placed something in his father's palm. The photographs of his bruises, the ones he secretly documented. Rob stared at them. His knees gave way and he slumped into a chair, trembling so hard the pictures shook with him. "What have I done?" At that precise moment, police sirens wailed from the street below, growing louder, closer. Rob looked up, startled. Linda checked her phone. Spencer triggered an emergency welfare response. Minutes later, Spencer walked into the apartment with two uniformed officers. He took one look at Rob, shaking, devastated, and quietly requested Rob's voluntary statement regarding domestic abuse. Rob didn't argue. He didn't even hesitate. He simply nodded, ready to face the truth. Chelsea was arrested that evening, not just for assault, but under investigation for past suspicious deaths linked to her financial gain. That USB video became the first crack in the wall she had carefully built, and everything poured out afterward. As for Gerald Hayes, authorities located him overseas. He attempted to flee, but international warrants travel farther than fear can outrun. Weeks passed. Ethan and I settled into something that felt almost like peace. The kind earned, not given. The kind rebuilt from wreckage. Rob sought therapy, swallowed truths he never wanted to taste, and slowly worked his way back into Ethan's life, not as a controlled puppet, but as a father learning how to protect
instead of defend the wrong person. One quiet evening, Ethan looked at me from across the dinner table and smiled, soft, cautious, real. "You saved me, Grandma." I shook my head gently. "No, Ethan, you saved yourself. I just stood beside you while you found your voice." But inside, I knew the truth. Sometimes the most dangerous monsters don't hide in darkness. They stand beside you pretending to be family. And sometimes the strongest warriors aren't soldiers or detectives. They're grandmothers who refuse to disappear.